From a beat-up cargo van in college to a national brand with hundreds of franchisees.
Then she kind of looked us up and down. She's like, you guys could be College H.U.N.K.S who haul junk. Honestly, I think it was the first time I've ever been called a hunk. I remember emailing Omar saying, hey, what's our timeline for starting this business on a year round? We did it last summer, it could work. And he was feeling the same way. He emailed me back, all capital letters. My timeline's right now, exclamation point, let's do this. So we quit our jobs and started full time. A lot of people were kind of like raised eyebrows. You're gonna quit your job to do what? Haul junk, and just gonna be called what? College H.U.N.K.S? Are you, what do they, you take your shirts off to go move the stuff? We still get that silly question 20 years later. I guess for lack of a better description, not to sound graphic, like these deer carcasses. It was like a hunter had harvested them for whatever they're worth and then put the remains there. And the guy was expecting us to haul it away. We get into the apartment and there was like a 15-foot boa constrictor or python that was not even in the cage, just loose in the apartment. The guys opened the back of the truck and it was like all this ammunition and weapons and like a lot of guns. And so they called the police and it turns out it was weapons that had been used in like an armed robbery or a bank robbery.
Welcome to the Bay Builds podcast, where we sit down with the people building Tampa Bay's most iconic businesses and unpack how they did it. I'm your host, Tracie Domino, founder of Event Outfitters, and today we're sitting down with someone who has built a business that has been actually moving people in every sense of the word. From a beat-up cargo van in college to a national brand with hundreds of franchisees, Nick Friedman, co-founder of College H.U.N.K.S Hauling Junk and Moving, has built a business that is as well known for its culture as it is for its catchy name. Nick, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Now, let's rewind to the beginning of your story. Tell us, when you first got started, what made you think you really had an idea here? You had a van, is that correct?
Yeah, so I would say most kids didn't grow up saying I want to be a mover or a junk hauler when I become an adult, and I was no exception to that, but I was brought up to follow the more traditional career path. 90s kid, work hard in school, get good grades, get into college, get a degree, get a job. And it was the summer before our senior year of college, and this was right around the time the movie Office Space came out. If you remember that movie, but it was basically, the message in the movie was that work sucks. At least office work does. And so as I was thinking about the next 20, 30 years of my life, it seemed very unfulfilling about what my options were. And we were home for summer vacation, and my best friend from high school, his mom had a beat-up cargo van from her furniture store. And I think she saw that we were sort of struggling with an idea, and she was like, why don't you guys go borrow the van? You can move people's furniture, you can haul people's junk away. And then she kind of looked us up and down. She's like, you guys could be College H.U.N.K.S who haul junk. Honestly, I think it was the first time I've ever been called a hunk. So we took it and ran with it, but we just made computer printout flyers and stuck it in mailboxes. And for me, that was like a light bulb moment because I saw very quickly people had a need for the service. They thought the name was catchy. And it was kind of fun. The physical work wasn't fun. It was grueling, but just being able to make money, doing something for yourself. As I would say, most college kids would probably quit after college and go do something in the real world. And we actually tried that briefly. We got regular jobs in DC and again, felt pretty unfulfilled. And I remember emailing Omar saying, hey, what's our timeline for starting this business on a year round? We did it last summer, it could work. And he was feeling the same way. He emailed me back, all capital letters. My timeline's right now, exclamation point, let's do this. So we quit our jobs and started full time.
So then at that point, you realized that this was no longer a college hustle, right? Like this was going to be your full business. And were you doing two jobs at that time, or did you just go all in?
So Omar went all in from day one. He quit his job and he jumped on the truck. And my dad, a little more conservative approach. He was like, quote unquote, don't quit your day job. Do this on the nights and weekends. And if the business starts getting some momentum, then it makes sense to quit your job. So sort of hedge your bets a little bit. I got to give it to Omar for letting me do that because, he was all in from the get-go. So Omar was on the trucks Monday through Friday. I was actually sitting in the cubicle for the job I had, but I had this old Nextel cell phone with the chirp phone and everything, and we had our 800 number either routed to that or the driver's phone. And so, I'd be ducking into the closet to take calls and then routing them to Omar, and then on the weekends, I was jumping on the truck and doing the work myself as well. It's probably about 2 or 3 months into it. I remember I was sitting at the dining room table It was late at night, 10, 11 o'clock at night. My dad comes in the room and he was like, how was your day? And I was like, listen, I woke up early to empty out the truck. Then I went to my quote unquote real job. But all day I was spending and working time on College H.U.N.K.S. And I'm at home. I've been calling back missed calls and customers. I've been putting stuff into the spreadsheet and I'm not tired. So I think he saw the energy and enthusiasm that I had. And he's like, all right, it's time to go all in. So that was probably only about 2 or 3 months after we went full stake into it.
That's awesome. So your family was cool on you going all in on the junk.
I would say, there were some skeptics. A lot of people were kind of like raised eyebrows. You're going to quit your job to do what? Haul junk, and just going to be called what? College H.U.N.K.S? Are you, what do they, you take your shirts off to go move the stuff? We still get that silly question 20 years later. And no, we do not take our shirts. But I do think, my parents were still supportive and our best cheerleaders. And you got to give it to Omar's mom, who gave us the initial idea for the name, gave us the cargo van. I think our parents were pretty happy once we stopped parking the truck in front of their house or in their driveway and finally got a real office, which was only a few months after we went full time into the business as well.
Is there a decision you can look back to in that first year that you feel like changed the trajectory of the company, even if you didn't realize it at the time?
As I look back on the whole journey, it's a whole bunch of micro decisions. I mean, you're really making choices and decisions every single day. It's like, what clothes do I wear? Do I go to the gym or not? What am I having for breakfast? And I think those micro decisions are eventually become micro habits, and that leads to macro results over the long term. I do think, before we even had what I say 2 pennies to rub together, we went and we bought a 1-800 number because we wanted to look bigger. So we bought this. We were just trying to come up with all these different combinations of 800 numbers. It could be like vanity numbers with the letters that spell the numbers. And we found 1-800 USA, and it rang to some, I don't know if it was a doctor's office or some location that wasn't really using it for that purpose. And we're like, hey, we'd like to buy this 800 number. We'll pay for you to get a new one and pay for your marketing to send your customers that you got a different number. And he's like, okay, I think, 13,500, I think was the number we settled on, or maybe he just threw it out at us. And it seemed like a very big number at the time. We weren't making a ton of money yet. We were slightly profitable because we didn't have any overhead, but we kind of made that bet. We bought the 800 number. And then I always say, we still had it routed to our cell phones. So we'd be in the driver's seat if people were calling 800 number to complain about driving. I'd be in the driver's seat being like, oh, yeah, we'll fire those guys when they get back to the office. So, probably fired ourselves 3 or 4 times that first summer. And we didn't have a lot of the resources that small businesses have today when starting out, right? Like today, you could have ChatGPT write a whole business plan for you or, create your website and everything else. I just kind of became a bit of a voracious reader when we started the business. I think I bought a book from Entrepreneur Magazine, How to Start a Business. It was like this big giant blue book, and I had, every other page dog-eared and underlined. And I didn't read a lot in high school or college, but I started reading pretty heavily once we started the business because I had something tactical and that I could, intangible that I could actually apply what I was reading to. And I think that's been a good habit over the 2 decades we've been doing this.
Well, when you learn it that way too, it's like so personal.
Yeah, well, because I'll give you an example. We read this other book a mentor recommended called The E-Myth Revisited by a guy named Michael Gerber. It's a really simple book. It's about a woman in a bake shop, but it might as well have been about 2 guys in a junk removal business because it would just almost described us to a T of what we were experiencing both emotionally and kind of on our day-to-day grind. And so when I read it, it was like, yeah, I could see myself in that book and all the lessons that book was talking about, creating systems, creating checklists, having a long-term vision, having a set of values, hiring great people to help you develop those systems and follow those systems. All of those things, as I read it, I was like, oh, yes, we should be doing this. And I kind of take that approach every time I'm reading a business book or listening to a podcast like this or otherwise. It's like, how can I apply this to my life or my business or now as a parent or a husband, in my personal life, learnings that I can apply tangibly. But I think as a student in high school or college, I was never really making that connection of what I was learning to what I was doing.
That's really great. And I think there's a lot that people can learn from that, and that there's things around us that teach us every day, right? That we can just catch from other people's experiences. Now, Nick, your company culture is pretty legendary. So is there a small ritual or tradition that helped that stick early on, or something you started doing with your team?
Again, I get back to sort of like being intentional with micro habits. I think back, we do a daily huddle at 11:11 every morning. It's usually about a 5 to 10 minute stand-up huddle. We have people on a big monitor as well that are remote, that aren't in the office or in different parts of the country. And when we started that, I think it's because I read it somewhere in a book, maybe even saw some of our competitors doing it and promoting it. And when we started, it was like 3 or 4 of us in a room smaller than this, the room we're in, sitting in here with a whiteboard. And we were going through, it was like very awkward and cumbersome trying to go through these motions of a core value review or, focus for the day or celebration to clap about. And it's only three of us looking at each other trying to like do this exercise, but it's become a habit in our business that now with, hundreds of people in our organization, we do to this day. And it allows us to reinforce the core values, reinforce the positive results and or positive connections that people have with each other. Today, for example, at the huddle, it was one of our staff accountants' 7-year anniversary, and everybody was just sort of, giving her those verbal flowers about how great she had been over these past 7 years, not just on her job of the numbers, but also just as a presence in the organization. And so I think having those consistent touch points as an organization has allowed us to develop this, what I believe now is a world-class iconic culture that others look to emulate and aspire to. And it's really stuff that we learned in books, good to great Jim Collins, is having this set of core values. We say it's not what's on the walls, it's what's in the halls. So, making sure we connect our core values to actual people that we bring into the organization. And all of it, I think, starts as aspirational. It's like, what do we want it to be like? And what do we want our environment and culture to feel like and act like? And then it gets down to just being intentional about making it happen every single day through little rituals like the daily huddle.
Well, and I imagine so many of the people you hire, it's their first job, right? Like guys in college or like the people on the street, right?
Right.
In
The
the
front
truck,
line.
the
Yes.
front line. Like, so I'm sure there's things that you're imparting into them that you hope that they carry on throughout their careers.
Yeah, I mean, it's not lost on me that it's a difficult job. I did it for a few years. I was very glad and grateful when I was able to get myself off the trucks, both in junk removal, and I'm a horrible mover. I think I moved recently. The only items that got broken were the items that I personally put my hands on. Everything else was perfectly in perfectly, good shape. But we developed a core value in our organization we call building leaders, something that I'm very passionate about. So like if you ask me, am I passionate about junk removal? Am I passionate about moving or transportation or even franchising? Franchising, yes, because I think it gives people a business ownership opportunity. But moving and junk removal, I'm not excited about. But what I am excited about is leadership development, both for myself. It's something that I believe I'm destined to try to keep getting better and reach my highest level of potential, but also help other people get better as well. Like I played sports in high school and college. I always kind of aspired to maybe be a basketball coach one day, but this platform, this brand that we have gives me and everybody else in our organization who is a leader an opportunity to impart skills, life skills and learnings to a frontline labor force that maybe otherwise doesn't get that type of training or exposure to human relations, problem solving, public speaking, decision making, logistics, all the sort of things that we talk about that we do in our daily grind of a business. It gives these individuals, and to your point, a lot of times first-time employment or maybe underemployed demographic, an opportunity to learn leadership skills and values that they can carry with them, whether they're here for 3 months or 3 years. We actually just recently recognized our very first employee number one that we had hired when Omar and I, first needed somebody to lift the other end of the truck, a guy named Modi, who has gone on to do incredible things. He's worked at Nike, he's worked for Red Bull, and now he's got his own brand called Swang, which is a golf brand looking to bring in more of an urban audience and participation in the sport of golf. And it's developed this huge, really groundswell following. And so it's cool to see sort of like almost alumni of our brand that have gone on to do things on their own as entrepreneurs or have grown up to become franchise owners in our system or business leaders in our organization or outside of our organization. And, from time to time, we'll get a LinkedIn message or an email or a text of somebody that, reflects back on their experience working at our company, whether it was 10 years ago or 5 months ago, and be able to sort of share how those values impacted them and how the training impacted them as well. So we say we're not a moving and junk removal company. We're really a recruiting and training organization that happens to provide moving and junk removal.
That's great. That's great. Now, on that same note, is there a specific conversation with an employee that maybe happened years ago, maybe happened last week, that you feel like that's something that will stay with you, like some experience? I guess it could be good or bad, but just whatever, that something that specifically as a leader that you felt was something that really has stuck with you?
Well, there's a lot of them. I learn as much from our team members as I would say they probably learn from me. We have somebody who's leading our entire organization, our entire operation. His name's Dan. He started out as a local manager here in Tampa, leading the local Tampa operation. He was in his mid-20s, I think, when he joined the organization. Very ambitious, really wanted to move up quickly. And at the time, I still am. I have very high standards of excellence. Like I'm OCD to a fault. It's somewhat of a superpower, but it can also be very, grating on folks. And so I'd be lighting him up like almost every day if I saw a truck out, and because I'm here in Tampa, I could see what our trucks look like, whereas I'm not in every market across the country. So he benefited and also suffered from me seeing the business every single day in our community. And so if I saw, a signage had a scratch on it, or if we had a local, specific parking location for marketing, and for some reason the truck wasn't there, it was back at the shop, but wasn't being used, I'd be lighting him up. And I think to the point where it probably could have risked him, moving somewhere, to a different organization. But we had a conversation. He actually took it upon himself to ask me to go to lunch and sit down, and sort of like he felt like, me coming at him every time was basically indicating he wasn't doing a good job. And we were able to have a very candid conversation around like, look, I'm just trying to push you to like see what opportunity is, and also hold you accountable to a level of high standards. And that's what we have to set for ourselves as leaders. But he also helped me understand some of the ways that I was coming at him with knee-jerk reactions, or the energy or the emotion that I was coming at him with, and how that could be, counterproductive to somebody who's just really trying to get their management and leadership feet under them. So I think being able to have those types of direct conversations, as opposed to, sending things via text or email, which is somewhat habituated in the way I operate, was enlightening. And now here we are 10 years later, he's, leading our entire franchise performance team and 200 franchise owners in the organization.
Cool to see that transition for any of your people. That's really great. Now, with working with all these college students, and probably more when you were like hands-on with them, I've just got to know, like, what's the most ridiculous excuse you've ever heard from someone? Because we hear a lot about like, Gen Z, millennial, like we're millennials, but like, what is the funniest or strangest item you can remember anyone asking your team to haul away?
Probably the craziest one was the very first summer we started. I still had my day job, and I remember Omar calling me because I would get these like leads off of the internet and forward them to Omar to try to follow up with and close the deal. And it was basically said like debris behind a warehouse outside of the dumpster area. And Omar gets there, and it was, I guess, for lack of a better description, not to sound graphic, like these deer carcasses. It was like a hunter had like, I guess, harvested them for whatever they're worth, and then put the remains like there. And the guy was expecting us to haul it away. And Omar was basically like, look, I'm not doing this. And easy for me, I was sitting in a cubicle. I was like, Omar, you got to do it. He's going to pay us, to do it. We certainly didn't have the authority or licensing to do that. So I think we ultimately turned that deal down. We did there was an eviction in D.C. This is, again, when we were still on the trucks in the middle of the city, and we get into the apartment, and there was like a 15-foot boa constrictor or python that was not even in the cage, just loose in the apartment. So we had to call animal control. We weren't equipped to do that. So, anything hazardous or living, or that had been living, that's not what we haul. We haul away, furniture, appliances, debris. I mean, this is this is how long we've been in business, but like this one guy was getting married, and he had, I guess, a very large pornography collection that he wanted us to haul away without his fiance knowing or finding out. That was a little bit strange. So yeah, it takes all kinds, right? I mean, people accumulate a lot of stuff over time, and it's remarkable to see what people A, hold on to and put in storage, or B, what they actually are willing to get rid of. And actually, the craziest one that just popped into my head is we had a job in Boston, and the person having us haul this stuff away was adamant that they did not want us to donate it. They did not want us to touch it after it was in the truck. They wanted us to go straight to the disposal facility. And I guess it was like a speaker and like something else, but it like kind of fell over in the back of the truck on the way to the disposal facility. Well, the guys opened the back of the truck, and it was like all this ammunition and weapons and like a lot of guns. And so they called the police, and it turns out it was weapons that had been used in like an armed robbery or a bank robbery. And this was their way of disposing of it. It's, you'd think there'd be a more discreet way than calling this big orange and green truck to come, haul the evidence away. But that was probably the craziest one that I can think of.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, we had another time. We actually were doing a job in Washington, D.C., and our truck ended up all over Twitter because it was Ivanka and Trump and Jared Kushner's house. And this was after, I guess, the 2020 election. They were getting ready to move back to Florida, and they their assistant or somebody had called us out to remove some stuff that they were clearing out before they moved. But I guess somebody from the paparazzi or whatever, saw this College H.U.N.K.S truck. So I was like, I guess this means they're leaving Washington. They finally, decided they're gonna move out. So that was pretty crazy that we got wrapped into that PR blitz as well.
So on that note, was there a time when you felt like the brand really took on a life of its own?
From the very beginning, just seeing people's reactions to it. I mean, people would ask us, hey, is this a franchise, even though we only had one truck? Or they would say, hey, I see your trucks all over town, and we only had one truck. Mm-hmm. We had a Washington Post reporter call us after she saw one of our signs, and she said, with this name, it's catchy. Tell me the story. And we just said, hey, we did it last summer. Omar wrote a business plan our senior year of college. Now we're doing it full time. We, not the traditional career path. And she wrote this big article about it. And people would actually this was pre-social media, really. People would cut the article out and call us to come do the work for us. So we always knew that the brand had sort of something that was, I call it a pattern interrupt. It's not what people typically associate with movers or haulers. But then we ended up landing on the very first episode of the very first season of Shark Tank. So that was kind of our introduction to a national audience. From there, we were on a reality show in our single days called Millionaire Matchmaker, where Omar picked up his date in a junk truck and cleaned out a garage. So not a great date, but good branding, and it would have been a meme if those had existed back then. So I think we've always felt like the brand has the potential to be something bigger, and we always kind of presented the brand bigger than it really was. And I think now the business has actually caught up to the brand, and now we're sort of tooling to say how can we take it to the next level.
This was actually going to be my next question. What do you see going forward into the future? Like, do you have specific goals in terms of size or other expansion opportunities? What do you see in the future?
Yeah, absolutely. So our 2025 goal was kind of subjective, but we described ourselves, this was something we set out 10 years ago, that we were going to be an iconic brand. And I feel like we've done that. Like, people that have seen the orange and green trucks are familiar with the brand, are familiar with the story or what we do. So in the next 10 years, we want to become a $1 billion brand. Wow. It sounds like a big number. I think it's, kind of a vanity number, but, I'm a firm believer that if you don't set high goals, then, you're definitely not going to achieve them. The people that set high goals will typically fail more than the people that don't, because it's going to take you longer, or you're going to have more, missteps to get there along the way. But I'm a big believer in how big can this business be as a platform of opportunity for our franchise owners, for the services we provide in the community, as employment opportunity for the employees in the organization. And the way we're going to do that is through continuing to double down on our core business, local moving, junk removal, expanding now that we have a national footprint, long distance, corporate moves, national accounts because of our national platform, and then just getting incrementally better every single day at lead conversion, lead optimization, client experience, client referrals, all of those intangible components that build the sort of foundational building blocks of a business. We just got to keep getting better at. And, so that's the stuff that continues to excite me, is how much further can we take this thing.
Nick, this is awesome. Now, before we go, we have a thing we're calling the lightning round, which is going to be 3 questions that we're going to ask all our guests. And they're just very basic Tampa kind of based things too. So what would be your favorite restaurant currently in Tampa?
Favorite restaurant, I have to say Boulan.
Boulan, great choice. Steak frites? No.
Yeah. I like the trout almond. Is it trout almondine or a snapper almondine? I think it's a snapper almondine. But my best friend growing up from high school, that went to school with Omar and I, he's actually the assistant GM there now. So I'm partial. I'm friends with those guys, Andrew and Jeff and all those guys as well.
Great. It's a great addition to Tampa. And then what would be your hype song? And I'll explain that. Like, if you were going to speak in front of a group, or you were going to give a big presentation or something like that, what would be the song you'd play for yourself to?
Yeah. So it's near and dear to me because this was sort of the soundtrack for us when we were on the trucks back in 2005, and we just hired him to come perform at a private concert for our annual franchise convention. Our 20th anniversary is ludicrous, and it's Move, Get Out the Way would be mine, because we're a moving company, so it's kind of got the double meaning. But he was a great performer. He did HUNKS in different area codes as his remix for our private concert. But yeah, Move, Get Out the Way by Ludacris.
Awesome choice. And one final question: what is the best business gift you've ever received?
The best business gift I've ever received, man. I'm kind of a swag junkie, so I would say, actually, no, I take this back. It just popped into my head. One of our very first call center managers sent Omar and I a gift for our 20th anniversary, and it was a book with all these movie posters in it, but all the movie posters were AI edited to have my face and Omar's face in the movie poster. So it was like Step Brothers movie poster, but it was me and Omar as the Step Brothers, or Wedding Crashers movie poster. It was me and Omar as Owen Wilson and the guys from Wedding Crashers. So that was pretty cool, just because I thought it was thoughtful, it was creative, made me laugh. So I'll put that one up there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nick. I really appreciate it. And we're just so excited to have you here on this first episode.
Yeah, I'm honored. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Congrats on the platform. I'm excited to listen to more.
Nick, thank you so much. Your story is such a great reminder that the best brands are built with equal part heart and hustle. If you want to learn more about College H.U.N.K.S hauling, junk, and moving, you can check them out online or follow Nick on LinkedIn. We'll have everything listed in the show notes. And until next time, remember, here in Tampa Bay, we don't just build businesses, we build legacies.